Hello and welcome to Dancers Support Mission by Sabine for Shine Your Light. We have a new episode of Dancer to Dancer Words of Wisdom. And I created this platform to meet the person behind the dancer and share with you all not only the highlights of someone's career, but also the challenges behind the scenes. Truly, my wish is to bring healing into the dance world, dancing to heal, healing to dance, one artist at a time and one personal story at a time. I do believe that storytelling gives us an opportunity to learn from another person's experience, and it can shape, strengthen, or challenge even our opinions and values. Hopefully, this will allow you to embark or reflect on your own personal healing journey inspired by others' experiences. And of course, if you find those interviews valuable and interesting, please share them with your friends. And don't forget to send me some feedback. Okay, so today I'm delighted to welcome Steve Coutereel. Steve is a very, very dear friend of mine. We met quite a while ago. It's been, when was that? In Montreal, in 2005. So that's already, he saw my son come into the light and to this world. So he's a very special person for me. Steve, thank you so much for being with me and taking the time to do this interview.
You're welcome.
So I think you have a really interesting background, not only as a dancer, but for me as a human being, because I've always seen you question things, try to find answers to your questions, and also really reevaluate your way of thinking, so I thought that was always really inspiring. And also, how do you say this? I've lost the word now.
Resilient?
Sorry?
Resilient?
Well, not only resilient, but you're capable of, looking at yourself and say, okay, this doesn't work. I'm just going to do something else. And I'm going to do it fully and consciously. So anyway, there's a word that I was looking for. I can't find. So anyway, Steve, thank you for being here. And let's start with the beginning. I want to know where you come from, when you started dance, why you started dance, and when you decided to do that as a profession, because it's always a turning point.
Mm-hmm. I think I am probably the least most likely person to have fallen into the dance world, because I'm from a small town in Belgium. And I was very active as a child, meaning I was doing a lot of sports, soccer, tennis, swimming. Swimming was my big thing. I did competitive swimming. And there was a group of kids in our neighborhood. We were about 10 or so, always playing outside. It was, in a small village. So we were playing in the streets, in the yards, really a very different time. And one of the girls of that group, Natasha, was saying, "Oh, I'm going to go to a dance class. Do you want to come?" And I just said yes, because I usually said yes to something new. So I went thinking this was going to be ballet, because that's how she presented it, but I didn't even know what that meant. So I go, and it's in our school, our regular academics school, in the gymnasium. And I was the only boy, and it was like aerobics. There was moms there was, of course, only girls. And so I was there just like in jogging, and we were doing dance steps to pop music. But I guess I kept going back every week. It was once a week. And then summer vacation arrived, so it stopped. And when the new school year started, it was a new teacher, and she was doing ballet. So she was
How old were you then?
I was 12.
Okay.
So I was 11, and then I turned 12 when the new teacher arrived. And she said, "Well, if this is ballet, so if you want to keep coming back, you're going to have to wear tights and get ballet shoes." I was like, okay. I was still the only boy. And so we were starting at bar and we were still learning little dance numbers, nothing ballet, so more jazz. And I kept going back. My friend had already stopped a long time ago. And then that teacher said to me, well, if this is something you really enjoy, you could do this as a profession, but not in my school. We have to take you to another school because you're now already 12. So, one class a week is not enough. And I said, okay, still not really knowing what that meant. I mean, I was in love with the series Fame. Remember Fame?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Actually, I saw the movie only. I never saw a series.
Yeah, there was a series.
Okay.
So we went to a first school in Brussels. I auditioned, not really knowing what that meant again. And I saw some more adult dancers and I thought, oh, wow, okay, that's sort of nice. Piano music playing everywhere. And they accepted me, but I didn't really like the school in Brussels. I didn't really know. And so I was like, well, I don't see how this is possible. And then she said, there's another school in Antwerp, which is a bit more developed.
Mm-hmm.
And they do academics in the same building. I was like, okay, well, let's try. And when I walked in that building, it was incredible. I felt like I stepped into Fame. Long hallway, studios everywhere. There was, to me, they seemed like adults, but they were 18. Mm-hmm. Dancing everywhere. There was other kids in just like regular clothes coming out of math class or history or whatever. I was like, oh, wow, this school is amazing. And luckily I got accepted. I don't know how. They put me in a ballet class. I didn't even know the steps, the name of steps. I knew plié and tendu, but that was about it. I really, I came from 1 hour a week. Anyway, I got accepted. And
by then you're 13.
By then I was 13. And so this meant that I had to leave my parents' home because going from my village to Antwerp by car would take an hour and a half if there's no traffic, but there's always traffic.
Yeah.
And class would start at 8 or 10 in the morning. So I had to go in a boarding school, but there was no boarding school. There was one for girls, but not for boys. So I got my own apartment. And I mean, I had to fight with my mom because my mom was, I was always the youngest one staying beside my mom, going everywhere just on my bike, not even taking a bus. And now I have to like live by myself. Absolutely not. I said, Mom, let me try it. Let me try it just for one semester. And she did. And so here I went to school, and I guess I was just working so hard trying to catch up with these guys because they were all doing 25 hours a week. And I came from like an hour and a half a week. Mm-hmm. And they must have seen something because in a year time, I really caught up with them. And then I grew.
Do you think you caught up out of mimetism, like trying to mimic people? I mean, or was it a mental thing or was it just like a physical thing? You were so immersed in it that, your body started doing what the others were doing.
It was really just like, wow, people think that I can do this. So I'm going to show them how much I can do it. So I was working my buttocks off. I mean, swear. And it was going so fast. And I guess I was malleable at that time because honestly, not to pretend like I'm something I'm not, but I had nothing going for me. I have no feet. The only thing I have naturally is turnout. I have a flat turnout, so that of course helps for dance, but for the rest I had nothing. I wasn't developed. I was
but I mean, you were, it's like a diamond in the rough. I mean, it doesn't look like a diamond, it looks like a stone. It's the same.
I think so. Because in a year I really caught up. I was first of class, and then, like I said, I got a growth spurt, so they put me with the older people to do pas de deux. So then I became really strong. I was doing lifts before everyone else. I had to stay after school to rehearse with the graduates, and then it all went very fast. I was supposed to do 5 years, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. And after the year before graduating, stop me if this is going too far.
No, I mean, let's go. I'll ask you a question. I'll come back to things after.
So the graduating class, the director of the company would come assist, and then
in Antwerp.
Yes, and then take someone, or if if there was no one, just walk along. And that year there was only one boy in the graduating class, so they put him with our class. There was 6 boys in my class, and I guess because I was the tallest, he chose me, the director, Robert Danvers. But of course, my director in school didn't want to say. But I found out because I had friends in the company, and they said, "No, Robert Danvers wanted you, but he can't have you because you're not graduating. You have 1 more year left." So when I found out, I called the company to verify if this was true. You know, I'm 17 years old, but I'm like, sky's the limit.
Bold.
Yeah, of course you can. If you want to, if you don't want to finish your school, I'd be happy to have you. I was like, well, okay. So I tell my mom again, no, you have to finish your class. You have to make sure you have a diploma, because what if this doesn't work out? You have to be able to continue. I said, Mom, you've been paying for me. Now I'll be on my own. I'll be independent, and I can start working. This is what this is about, because maybe next year there won't be an offer. So I went.
Yeah, and you know, when you say I had nothing to be a dancer, I think you really underestimate the actual dancer within you, you know, the mover.
Right.
You know? And I think this is priceless, because you can have all the talent in the world and all the qualities. If you don't have that, well, then you're not a dancer. And I think this is what you had, you know, in the end.
But unbeknownst to me, there was nothing that made this, you know, I don't know how it came out. If it hadn't been for my friend, this probably would not have happened. I'm not sure. But yeah, I suppose that I had this sort of the talent, and I would say the willpower.
Yes.
The willpower that, okay, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to put everything in my way to make it happen.
So what would you say was your biggest challenge as a kid, you know, as a kid trying to catch up with everything? You know, what would be the main thing that was the hardest for you?
It's, you know, when I look back on it, there was nothing. Once I stepped into that building, for me, there was really no turning back. And I always had this like conviction that if someone says no, well, that's going to be their problem, because I am determined. I'm going.
It's called the drive, you know, and I think that's what people sometimes miss a lot these days. It's like, you know, it's nowhere to be found in the end, you know.
Yeah, because when I look back at it, of course, when I hear my story, and okay, I had to wake up at 6:30 every morning, because I had to take the tram from there. That would take like 40 minutes, and you know, ballet class was at 8:10. And yes, after, when I got back from school, I had to do groceries and make a meal. Afterwards, we found someone that would make meals for me. But so yeah, it was a lot, and I have to study too to get all my academics in order. But I just did it. At the time, I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm not going to make it. I was taking more. If they offered more, I was like, sure, I'll stay after hours and do rehearsals, no problem. So I would get home at 9, then do my homework.
Yeah.
And wake up at 6:30.
It's wonderful.
Which years later, when I had to do my military service and I had the same sort of schedule, then it was really treacherous. I hated it. Hated every day of it. But at the time,
great. So you started with Robert Danvers in Antwerp, and then what happened? So how long did you stay there, and where did that lead you? Because I know that you had many other experiences after that.
yes. So I joined the company, and so like I said, I didn't do my graduating year. So there was steps in class that I had never done. And now I'm in the company. I'm the youngest dancer. I'm 17. And for me, they're all adults, you know, like experienced. All the men, they seem like my dad almost. This one time we had to do double saut de basque-en-l'air. I was like, I've never even done that. I have never in my life tried that. And here I am, okay, almost doing a cross sign. I'm going with these men. To me, they seem like, you know, grown-up men. And just go for it. And I guess Robert Danvers saw something in me, so he was always teasing me a little bit, like, hey, Junior, or, you know, Little Devil, he called me, because I had my hair sticking up like that. I was not developed. I still looked like a boy. I was tall, but that was it.
But in that time, directors were willing to do that, and they were willing to have a palette of artists, you know, from much older to, you know, mature, and then much younger, and this was that's what was so exciting, you know. I mean, I also developed in a company where you had people much older than, like 20 years older than me, and I could look up to them, and I was like this baby, you know.
Same thing for me. And so things were going really, really well. It was a rather big company. We were 50 dancers, right away going on tour. My second tour. First one was to Belfast, and then we did in Athens. We did Don Quixote in the Herod Atticus, which is like, you know, dancing in history. Yeah. And here I am doing like the Matadors. We have Mukhamedov coming as a guest star. I'm like, wow, this is going great. You know? And it was going great. And he was giving me great opportunities. But somehow I already knew. So I did my second year, and then I was like, I feel that I'm going to get a promotion maybe next year. And I knew right away, if this happens, I'll never leave the company. I'm too comfortable. I have an amazing apartment. I have a whole bunch of friends, school friends, and then people that I met from the fashion academy. I was living the life, you know, going out all the time, having so many friends, living a great life outside of dance also. And I thought, I'm going to get too comfortable, and this is not what I want. I want to travel. I want to see other things. So I started auditioning, and I ended.
Courage to do that when everything is going so well. I mean, you know, why would you leave something?
I can't explain why, but I just knew that if this happens, I'll never leave. I'll get so comfortable, and I think that I'll regret that.
Yeah. Okay.
I was like, better to leave now, and then we'll see. So I got a job in Ballet du Nord, which isn't that far from Belgium, but still it's in France. And I stayed there for 4 years. Then,
sorry? Was it Robert North?
No, he had left already. It was Jean-Paul Comelin.
Okay, yeah.
Jean-Paul Comelin. I did 1 year with him, and then he was let go. Then we had an interim director, François Zadret, from Lyon. And then they chose, one of the candidates was Angelin Preljocage. Yes. And so he was supposed to take over the company.
Yeah.
And he took 2 dancers. He needed 2 dancers to fill up his proper company to go on tour. And he picked me and another dancer in the company. And in the end, I couldn't go because I got my military service letter and I had to go to the military.
Oh, wow.
So in Belgium at the time, it was still obligatory. I had to do 10 months and I got away after 6.
10 months. Wow.
Yeah. So I had to move back. Well, I had the choice to not go, but then I would have never been able to go back to Belgium. So obviously I didn't do that.
Wow.
So I went back to Antwerp and I did my military service. I got away after 6 months. That's a whole story where I got injured and then I overplayed it, went to the military hospital and became very dramatic. And so they let me go after 6 months. And luckily, I was hired back into the company in France, which was now this French director. And I told her, yes, I'm in shape. I was able to do classes. I know all the rep. It'll be easy for me to come back. And she agreed. So thank you, Madame Adré. I took my job back. After that, it was supposed to be Angelin, but he didn't come because he wanted to fire a number of dancers. Yes, Angelin Preljocage. And so he aborted, didn't take over the company. And then it was Maryse Delande who took over the company. Okay. So I stayed 2 more years with her. And then I moved to the US. At the time.
Why the US? Was it the same thing? You thought, okay, I need to explore more, or something came up?
I met my first boyfriend in the company, who was also a dancer, an Australian dancer, who had trained at SAB in New York. And he wanted to go back to the US. And so we also had another friend in the company who came from Portland Ballet and who had just arrived in Ballet du Nord. And the 3 of us were always together. And so he wanted to go back. So she said, well, why don't you go to my former company? He's looking for men. So he went, and I gave him my cassette also, because at the time it was still VHS. We had no links or DVDs even. And I said, show him my tape also. And if, maybe we'll get lucky. And so we did get lucky. He hired both of us for a 2-year contract.
2 year? I
2
didn't
years.
know you could even have a 2-year contract in a ballet company.
I know. And so, I mean, I didn't even really know the company. All I knew from it was through my friend who had danced there, but it was James Canfield, so Oregon Ballet Theatre. James Canfield had done his career in Joffrey Ballet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, well, if they can get our papers sorted out, it'll be a stepping stone. For me, it was always a stepping stone. I knew that that was going to be just to get my situation in order, and then we were going to go somewhere else from there. So we moved there, had a nice time. It's a nice place to live, Portland, Oregon Ballet. But it was definitely not the company for me. So when I found out that they hadn't done anything about our immigration status 3 months later, and that we had been working illegally for 3 months or on a tourist visa, let's say, we left. We left just like in 1 day time. And of course, it created quite a stir because my ex-boyfriend was doing a lead in Swan Lake. And I was doing another creation, contemporary creation. So they had to replace us in like no time. But, I was just really upset that, they had been lying to us. And then we went and guested for Nutcrackers in LA Classical Ballet. And there that man got our papers sorted out in like 1 week time. And it was only a contract for 2 months, of course, Nutcracker. From there, we went to New York just to hang out and regroup and see what was going to happen next, because we sent out our videos everywhere, and to San Francisco Ballet. And Helgi Thomason came to see our Nutcracker in LA. And he spoke with us and he said, well, I don't know if I have any contracts yet, but I'll keep your material. And then while we were in New York, we hadn't heard anything. And then we decided to maybe go on a cruise ship with my friend Jill, who now had also left Ballet du Nord. So we sent our audition material to go dancing on a cruise ship.
That.
Yeah, they hired all 3 of us. So like, okay, let's go on an adventure. This is a year contract. We'll tour the world. And it was on the fanciest ship, the QE2, Queen Elizabeth. And we were featured dancers. So we did not have to do crew duties. We could sit at the captain's table. So it was really a cushy job and good money. And then next thing you know, the papers come through. We both get a contract for San Francisco. So we call our friend, we're like, we're really sorry, but of course, if you can go to San Francisco Ballet, that's a much better choice. So we went and she went on the cruise ship. Started San Francisco Ballet. I was always more keen to do contemporary, and that's sort of where I was going. And then San Francisco Ballet, of course, was much more classical. There was a few contemporary choreographers, but I was rarely picked for that because this is a company, 85 dancers. Again, things are going very smoothly. Helgi gave me a lot of opportunities. I did a few principal roles, even though I was just corps de ballet. But there again, I was like, no, this is not what I want. I want to do contemporary. So I decided to leave, and I wanted to dance for Nacho Duato in Madrid. Mm-hmm. So I booked 2 flights a month apart, one to go for a week to take classes with the company. And depending on how that was going to go, then one a month later to do the official audition. So I spent a week there. He says, yes, learn all the stuff, the new creation. So I'm working like a madman, learning all this choreography. And he never came to watch me. So of course, by now I have some contacts in the company. I said, so what should I read into this? Is he just not interested or... And they said, well, difficult to say. Sometimes he does that, but then you have to come to the audition. If you want to join the company, you have to come to the actual audition date because there's people from the Ministry of Culture that are there and you need to sign your contract on the date. I said, okay, let me think about it. And I decided not to go because I also had a show in San Francisco on that day. So I didn't want to put myself in trouble. So I didn't go. And then I had a friend who told me about a company in Chicago, Hubbard Street Dance. And she said, well, they do a lot of Nacho Duato's work. So why don't you try there? Okay, let me go. So I go for a weekend, learn, I don't know how many rep, like Twyla Tharp, Danny Ezralo, Nacho Duato. I mean,
in one weekend.
In one weekend, I had to learn so much in different partners, and the director was really with me like this. And so he offered me a job. I was like, great, I'm moving to Chicago.
Alone this time.
Yes. Yes. So I was still with the ex-boyfriend, but after a year, fizzled. And now I'm in Chicago, loving it. I was like, wow, this is the place where I'm going to retire. I bought my first apartment there. Things are going really great. Met a lot of people. This is a touring company, so you're always on the road. It was like a tight-knit family, about 20 dancers. Had a great time. That director retired, and then a new director came, who is Jim Vincent, who had done his career in NTT. So this was even better for me. I'm getting one step closer to my idols, which were Jiri, Kylian, Mats Ek, and Nacho Duato, and of course Forsyth and a few others. I thought, well, this is perfect. Jim was really fond of me, so I was, started to do Kylian ballets. That's where I met Ohad Naharin. Had a great experience. Well, actually, it started off really bad. That's the first time in my life where I had to do improv, and I had never done that. And Ohad is quite impressive when you meet him.
Yeah.
Once I got
when you see his dancers.
Yes. So when I got over that hump, I had a great time. And then the next step arrives. So this is the time when I saw Bella Figura from Jiri, Kylian on tape, because we were still working with tapes at the time. Well, DVDs started to come in a little more. And so we were watching that tape from morning till night, trying to teach it to ourselves, because in Hubbard Street, we had already done Sextante and Petite Mort. So the next step would have been Bella Figura. And our director wasn't very clear. He's like, yes, it's coming. Maybe we do Falling Angels first, and then we'll have Bella. And finally, I found out that we were never going to do Bella Figura because the board was so conservative in the sense that they didn't want to have topless dancers. So we were never going to get it. And a friend in the company again, Kendra, who used to dance in Montreal, she said, oh, Les Grands Ballets is getting Bella Figura. I was like, what? Never heard of Grand Ballet Canadiens. So I look on their website and I see not only do they do Bella Figura, they will also do Matzek, the Apartment, Solo for Two. Like, that's it. Pick up the phone. I called Vladimir. I said, I'm a dancer from Chicago. Do you have any contracts available? I would love to come in 2 weeks. And he's like, I have no more contracts. I said, yeah, but can I still come and take class? He said, well, don't come because don't waste your money. I said, no, I want to come see the company. And if you allow me to, I'll take a few classes. He said, well, suit yourself. You're welcome to take class, but I have no contracts. He was very, very clear. So I go and I take class, and there was a teacher from the Paris Opera who was teaching. So the director was in the audience. He was watching. And then I remember very clearly after class, we go and sit in the lobby, and he said, so why do you want to be here? I said, because I want to dance Bella Figura. And he started laughing. He's like, you keep telling me that Chicago is so amazing. You want to retire there? I said, yeah, but I really want to dance Bella Figura. It's like, but this is insane. Even if you were to join the company, he's like, I can't guarantee you that you will dance it. He's like, I don't do casting. I said, I understand, but I want to put myself in a position close to the end goal.
And the opportunity is there, at least.
Yeah. So I go back to Chicago, and 2 weeks later, he calls me and he said, I'm offering you a soloist contract.
Okay.
So
But that's Vladimir, huh? He was always like this.
There was a principal dancer of the company that feigned being sick And he went and guessed it. And of course, Gradimir knew everyone in the dance world, so he found out and he fired the dancer on the spot. And he called me.
Wow.
So then I called my current director and I said, well, I got the job. I'm very transparent with you. I know you keep saying that we're going to get it, but I'm really torn. I want to go. And they knew each other because Gradimir was director of NDT when Jim Vincent was his dancer. So they called each other.
Yeah.
And they were negotiating like I'm some famous soccer player, like which team are you going to go to? And so it was a hard decision, but I decided to go based on the fact I was very rational. I don't know where this all comes from, but I said, if I don't end up going, I may regret it for the rest of my life because Chicago, I know. Montreal, I don't know. So go to the place where you don't know and you'll see. If it doesn't work out, maybe you can come back to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did.
But don't waste any opportunity.
Don't waste. I mean, I put everything in place. So in a month time, I sold my apartment, moved everything, went home to visit my family, and then I moved to Montreal on July 14, 2002. And I started on July 15. And that year was incredible. Not only did I get picked for Bella Figura, I did solo for two, I did the apartment. It was the right decision because the year after Jim Vincent left Hubbard Street. So it was the right thing to do.
This is quite amazing, because most dancers know whether they want to be a classical dancer or more of a, contemporary or Balanchine, or, they can, not always, but have this idea. But I find it really amazing that you had this, this line and you went for it. And in the end, it took you, a few curves here and there, but this is where you ended up doing what you had planned for yourself.
Absolutely.
So intention is not a small thing, it's huge. I keep going backwards because the sun I'm gonna end up in my bedroom. Sorry. So that's really inspiring. So after the Les Grands Ballets Canadiens, that's your last company as a dancer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And can you share, we'll come back to this after, but can you share what you're doing now? Because you had a very smooth transition into the next the next phase of your life in the end, right?
Yes. So currently my title is artistic coordinator in Les Grands Ballets Canadiens. And this I've been doing since the pandemic. Before that, I was ballet master in the company.
Mm-hmm. So how was this transition for you?
I would say it was something that I was thinking about for a while. So to get to this point, I'll go back a little bit. So I was a dancer. I had to retire due to a persistent knee injury. Mm-hmm. But I was already 36. So, besides my knee, everything else was okay. We all had injuries, on our level, but I could have probably continued. But with my knee, I really tried, ended up having the surgery, came back, and it didn't work out. So I retired. Then I went to university because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do something else besides dancing. So I got a degree in translation. Mm-hmm. And then I did that for a little while. Then I started teaching in the school for an emergency replacement, and I was like, okay, sure, I can do that for a little bit while I build up my translation business. And then in the school, the director of the school, Annie Bissonnette, who I formerly danced with, she was giving me more and more things to do in the school. So now I'm taking care of the organization of the school show. And then she's like, why don't you take care of the graduate students, their academics and their course plans and all that? I said, sure. So in the end, I had to put translation to the side because I couldn't do it all. And because the school is in the same building as the company, Grand Ballet Canadien, well, at the time it was, I would see Gradimir on the stairs. He's like, I thought you were done. I said, yes, I am done. But now I'm teaching in the school. He's like, oh, well, come to my office. So this went on for about a year, and he was never very clear until finally he just said it. And he said, well, I want to offer you a contract as ballet master. And I thought, oh, wow, didn't see that coming. But funny enough, while I was in this transition period where I had retired, I went to stage Les Noces by Stijn Celis in a few companies. And this is actually, that had always been my retirement plan, to become an assistant to a choreographer.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of naturally happened. But then I was in the school, so I couldn't really do that anymore. And so now he's offering me the ballet master position. So I said, yeah, I thought about it a while. And then Annick was the one who said, you have to take this. It's an opportunity that won't come around. You know, if you don't take it now, he's going to hire someone else.
Yeah.
And that opportunity won't exist anymore. So I took it. Excuse me. And I was ballet master for 7 years. Went through a transition of directors, because now we have Ivan Cavallari.
Mm-hmm.
Then the principal ballet master, Pierre Lapointe, was retiring. And I thought, well, you know, maybe this is something that I could do. So he told me that he was going to retire 2.5 years ago. And so I went to the office of Ivan and I said, this is a position that I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. And he told me, are you sure? Because this is much more administrative. Because Pierre was only taking care of teaching class and teaching nutcrackers. The other ballet masters were doing creations and the other rep. And I said, I think I'm ready for it. I'm ready to learn a bit more of the business side, the administrative side, organizational skills and all that. And so I did. And it was during the pandemic. So it was the moment where we had to put all these different kind of new procedures in place. So I was able to make my mark there.
So how was the pandemic for you, actually? You know, like mentally, emotionally, physically, what happened? Because those 2 years were kind of like, you know.
Yeah. I think in Les Grands Ballets Canadiens, I mean, I can't speak for all the dancers, but we never really stopped working. We never really stopped working. I think we closed on March 13, which was 2 days before the premiere of the new creation. And then in May, we were back. So we had like a month and a half hiatus where everyone was at home. They cut up pieces of carpet for the dancers to take home. We were doing Zoom classes like that. And then right away we started with 2 dancers in the studio and teaching that Zoom class to everyone else in the company.
Okay.
We had a pianist and we had 2 dancers in 2 different studios, so there was no contamination possible. And then we upped it to 4 dancers, 6 dancers, and then eventually into 1 studio, and we kept going with that. And then it was even, after doing that for a week, we had Andrew Skills, who started working on a creation with 2 dancers at a time on his Requiem, which we are about to premiere now in March. So for me, it was exciting in the sense that I was learning a new craft. So all the business side, the administrative side, organization. So I was actually very busy and I wasn't working from home. I was always at the studios.
That's nice. Yeah. And yeah. What would you say is the biggest challenge of being a ballet master?
The biggest challenge, I would say, is to make sure that your dancers, well, first of all, of course, that they're being professional, meaning they learn the right steps, they do it correctly, they take your directions, you honor the piece the way it was created. Mm-hmm. So, you know, sometimes you see things in a piece that now that you are in charge of it and the choreographer isn't there anymore, it's sometimes tempting to switch a few things to make it, you know, issues that you see and you want to change. So sometimes you call the choreographer, what about that? Mm-hmm. So that happened quite a bit to me. I was like, I have to be careful. I can't make that decision. Yeah. And then
so
I think
is that a challenge?
I would say yes. Yeah. I mean, for me, that was a challenge. But then management skills, that's really the biggest thing, because you're a manager. As a ballet dancer, you have to manage egos.
As a ballet master, you mean?
As a ballet master, yes. What do you call that? Mood swings. You know, if you're teaching 40 dancers,
human beings, right?
Half of them love you, the other half don't, and the next day it flip-flops. So you have to really poker face and love them all like they're your only child. So that's the challenge, I would say. And of course, it's a lot of work. You can't learn every single step.
Yeah, of course, I
You
know.
have to do your best and just transmit. But
And I
it's a
think
lot.
it's important for dancers to hear that too, because actually dancers do not understand that until, and I talk for myself, until you actually put yourself in the shoes of the ballet master. You know what I mean? So,
Absolutely.
you know, we only think as dancers, we only think that we and our belly button exist, but actually there's 30 other people in the room with their own belly button and their own ego. So yeah, it is a huge challenge to be a ballet master, and I think ballet masters are pretty much heroes.
Thank you for saying that. I would agree with that. It's underestimated. I would say maybe undervalued a little bit.
Yeah, well, because people don't realize what it entails. I mean, the work is huge, the responsibility is huge, but then the feedback is very small. And the
Yes.
gratitude for the reward as well. I mean, your reward is what's on stage, but usually you don't exist anymore once it's there.
No, and it's a little bit, I used to say jokingly, when everything goes well, it's never because of you.
But when it goes wrong, it's your fault.
It's your fault. So yeah, you have to be thick-skinned because when you get bad criticism or bad reviews or whatever, you just have to suck it up because here we go, more
Yeah.
work to do. So yeah, it's a little bit hard, and I think that's also why when I saw an opportunity to change, I thought, well, I'm there because I don't see myself being a ballet master for 20 more years,
Mhm.
also physically.
Yeah, I mean, also above all because your repertoire is pretty vast and extensive in terms of, once you have to show this kind of step, it's not like showing classical ballets.
Exactly.
It's out of you, right? I mean, if you have to show some Matzek steps, it's not like if you have to do Sleeping Beauty.
Hmm. Hmm.
Although you have Sleeping Beauty of Matzek as well, that's a wrong example. But so not in opposition, but in parallel to that, what would you say was your biggest challenge as a dancer, as a professional dancer?
I think my biggest challenge was probably myself, which in the end became maybe one of my qualities. Because I always had a little bit of an imposter syndrome because I didn't go to a big school. I mean, even though Antwerp has turned out great dancers that all had very good careers, I didn't finish my school. So, there's some steps that I never knew. I felt like I didn't do the right thing. Like I didn't go to a major company, didn't do Swan Lake, even though I did all of them, but I always had this feeling that it wasn't, top of the line. But at the same time, it didn't really matter because I was so clear in what I wanted to do. The first ballet that I saw with my school was Matzek's Giselle. And for me, that was like, I had such a direct connection to it. I understood all of that. I even did my end work in the school on it. It was something I could not explain. It was very visceral when I saw Ana Laguna in these like deep wide positions and like looking around, just like very animalistic. It was something that I knew, and I could see other dancers, and I would point them out. I was like, "You're a Matzek dancer,"
Yeah.
and just as a, I hope she never hears this, but Julie Guibert, who's the director of Opéra de Lyon, who was a dancer that we danced together in Ballet du Nord, and we were dancing a lot together. And when I saw her as Ana Laguna. I was like, she has that same thing. And I told her, I was like, do you know who Matzek is? She didn't know. I said, you have to go to that company. Years later, she ends up going, and she's the first one who replaced Ana Laguna in Swan Lake. So she went to Coolberg, she took over all the roles he created on her and everything.
So
Anyway,
when you say, I hope she never hears that.
well, because we haven't spoken in so many years. I mean, I know it's true. It's not
Yeah.
it's not a story I invented. I just thought of her because it just was announced on social media that she's leaving the company.
Yeah, yeah, I just saw that too.
No,
Wow.
so, and I forgot what the question was.
Sorry?
I forgot what your question was. Oh, the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always felt a bit like an imposter. But I guess because of that, I always kept working against my own fears. And so that became maybe a drive or an engine to do better. To not, I mean, of course, you compare.
Your antidote was your drive, basically. So not listening to the little voice that told you were an imposter.
Exactly. And also, I was never running after a title or anything. The one constant in my whole dance career was repertory. And that's really the drive why I moved from one place to another. I was running after repertory, but never after a title or hierarchy or prestige or anything like that. Actually, I always took pay cuts. After San Francisco Ballet, my pay kept going down closer to my goal.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter.
Also to your heart, actually.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. So if you could give one advice to a young dancer today, if you only had one advice, what would that be?
I would say work harder. Actually, no, work smarter, which in terms means work harder. And so I can elaborate a little bit on that. Working smarter would mean don't compare yourself to others, or look at them with a critical eye in the sense that, oh, they do it better than that. So maybe I can work on that. But don't compare yourself to they have higher legs, they have better feet, they have better rolls, they went to a better school. It's a waste of time. That's not going to get you anywhere.
So your work smarter has many different layers.
Yes. Work smarter is also, don't do it a million times without putting the right energy in it. Do it once and do it right, and then work on something else. And this goes for everything in life, not just dance, right?
I also very much agree with, working consciously rather than working hard, because, you can hit your head against the wall as hard as you want. If you don't start, putting the pieces of the puzzle together, it's not going to work, and it's not going to be helping you in a way,
We see it. I mean, we've all seen it. There's dancers in the company or wherever in studios, and they're doing pirouettes, and they keep trying. And it's like, and three, and they fall out, and they do it like 10 times in a row. It's like, why don't you just take a walk around, take a breath, sit down, think why you're always falling over the same time. Just think for a moment. Don't just go again, like a
or take
maniac.
the time to breathe. That's a good one.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a stereotypical example, but to me that defines, working smarter, not harder. Because you're only going to get tired. Your socks are going to wear off. Now you have holes. Just take a moment.
Yeah.
And then, or look at someone, or go look at a video, or look at other dancers, how they're doing it. Not to compare, but to learn. Watch people who are better than you to learn. Take information from them. That would be my advice.
That's a great advice. Thank you very much. All right, Steve, thank you so much for sharing all these treasures of your life. I really enjoyed that because there was a lot of things I didn't know, actually. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sorry for rambling on.
No, I love ramble. It's not ramble, actually. It's just, I think it's fascinating to see what is the threat in someone's life, and we all have that threat, but it's different for everybody. And I'm always surprised, because there's not 10 stories the same. They're all different. So I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, as long as there's a flame, the flame, which is the initial thing, and you connect to that, well, then that's going to last. It's going to last for a very long time. Yeah, you can get sidetracked, but if the essence, the flame is there.
And it's going to drive you. It's going to lead you somewhere.
Exactly. So thank you.
Connect with your flame.
That's right. Thank you for for creating this platform. I'm sure that many people will look at it, and I hope that when I listen to myself and other people who are on it years down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy, sometimes I take an interview and I listen to it again, and I don't know, I enjoy them. So that's why I'm doing them. And I do it for others as a gift, because it's something that, yeah, that it makes me feel good. So that's why I do that.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you.